You are watching another Big Brass production. Today I'm going to show you how to set the size die to get that 3,000th setback on the shoulder. The idea behind what we're going to do is we're going to incrementally size 10 cases. We're going to insert them in the chamber of the M1A until we find that one that just closes the chamber, and then measure it and then use that to set the shoulder bump. Remember, safety first. Check the chamber, make sure it's empty. Here you see the reference lines I've drawn on the reloading press and the size die. This is a tip from Glenn Zedeker to use a O-ring on your size die. Just like the size die instructions state, run the die all the way down into the press, and then we're going to back it off about a quarter of a turn. Now I'm going to incrementally size 10 cases, starting at the least amount of shoulder bump to the greatest amount of shoulder bump. When you do this, you'll want to turn the die a smaller amount that I am showing in the video. I'm just doing this in the interest of time. You may ask, why should I worry about the shoulder bump? Well, if you're having troubles like rounds won't chamber, or you're having extraction problems, those can be caused by incorrect shoulder bump. What you want to have is a 3,000th to 5,000th setback of the shoulder. Now, as you're probably tired of watching me size these cases, remember to number each one, 1 being the least amount of shoulder bump to 10 being the most shoulder bump. Make sure to trim each of these cases to length. Watch our extractor removal video to see how to remove the extractor. Start with case number 1, stick it in the chamber, and see if the bolt lugs close. Here you can see the lug is not fully down. So we try another case. We're getting closer, but the lug is still not fully down. I want to emphasize again that what we're looking for is that margin of safety with that shoulder bump of 3 to 5 thousandths. This is what we're looking for, the first case where the bolt will fully close. Now in this one you can see where the op rod will slide forward. Now mark this case as your good one. Here I'm inserting a 1.633 headspace gauge to check the chamber. Notice the lug is not fully down. Here I'm going to insert a 1.632 headspace gauge, and notice how the bolt lugs close. The bolt lug goes down and the op rod slides forward. So now I have a case that I've marked good, and I have a headspace gauge of 1.632. Here I've taken the case marked good, put it in a Wilson case gauge, and set it on the Sinclair bullet sorting stand. I've zeroed the gauge so it reads 210 thousandths, and the groove of the gauge is 50 ten thousandths lower. Now I'm going to measure the height of the case head, 185 ten thousandths. Next, I'm going to measure the gunsmith headspace gauges just to show you that this method of using a sized case can be close. going to put that 1.632 headspace gauge into the Wilson case gauge and measure it. Now we've come up with about the same reading that the sized case had that we marked good. The Wilson gauge measures the SAMI minimum and maximums shown here. Next, I'm going to set the size die by using the difference between the top of the cartridge and the top of the gauge. Adding a bump of 0.003 to the difference between those heights gives 45 10,000ths. Measure the top of the Wilson gauge, subtract off the 45 10,000ths, in this case 155 10,000ths. Now I will take and size a series of cases until I find that case that measures 155 10,000ths. Size a case, measure it until you get the one that is 155 10,000. The important thing to remember about the method I'm showing here is to measure the height of the Wilson gauge. It doesn't matter what the height is. Measure it, subtract off the reading that you've got for your shoulder bump. In my case, it was 45 10,000ths. That then is what you want to look for in that sized case with the correct shoulder bump. Success at last. I've sized a case and I've found one that measures 155 10,000ths. Now remember to write down the relationship of the reference marks on the size die versus the press. Here are the tools that I used. Thanks for watching this Big Brass production, and stay tuned for more videos.